What's the most shocking secret someone has revealed to you? I'm 56 now, but at some point in my early 40s while driving with my dad he says you have a half-brother somewhere. I found out my mother and father were not divorced. He never existed. She had a one-night stand, found out she was pregnant, bought a wedding ring, changed her name, and told the family that she had gotten married. She made up excuses every time she went to my grandparents' house as to why her husband couldn't also be there to meet them. On the third visit my grandfather told her to never wear that ring in his house again. And when is the baby due? I'm 53. I had an old girlfriend who was coming to Florida and wanted to hang out with me and my wife. She brought her mom, who I knew pretty well. A great dinner, drinks, fun stories. Then when my ex went to the bathroom, the mom told me the ex was dying of cancer. I had no idea. It was sad, but yet felt so good she wanted to hang out. She died within a year. We were probably 35 years old at the time. Casually dropped they'd killed someone, then got really quiet about it. Like, sad quiet. Sounds like there was a case surrounding the ordeal but could never get them to talk about it more, and I didn't want to push. Friend told me in middle school she was sexually abused by her babysitter and the babysitter's boyfriend on multiple occasions. I sat there quietly and she ended up moving at the end of the year. I wish I had the right words then. Not a secret I guess, but when I was 16, my mom announced at dinner that her sister was coming for a visit next week. I dropped my fork and said, "You have a sister?" That he watched his son die of an overdose and didn't do anything to help. He told me that his son had battled addictions for many years and that he had called an ambulance in the past when his son had overdosed, but that he thought it was better this time to just let him go since he made his choice. My great-grandma recently revealed to me that, when my great-grandfather was on hospice 20 years ago, due to leukemia, she got tired of caring for him and irritated by how many people were at the house that she turned off his oxygen and sent him to rest with the good Lord. She has been diagnosed with dementia at some point within the past few years, so I don't know how true this is, but I will never look at her the same. I had a patient who, on his deathbed, confessed to sexually abusing minors while he was a soccer coach for many years. He said he had no idea how many, but it was in the hundreds and he wished he could go back in time to do it again. I walked out and threw up. In the 70s, my cousin died in a car crash that caught fire. I was very afraid that he was awake and felt the fire. My parents said he died immediately and didn't suffer. My mother was on hospice at home in 2011. She told me the firemen were trying to open the doors and my cousin and the other teens were screaming for help when the cars caught fire. There were no survivors and my aunt was never the same. It wasn't until after his death that the jaws of life were distributed to our rural departments. Dude with my last name pings me on Facebook and says he's my half-brother. Dad denies it and says the mom lied to her son and to the world. But he was obviously busy back in the day. I was a bridesmaid for a friend who had problems with her MIL. I went to have a chat with MIL after her brutal verbal attack at friend while at the bridal shop. I found out that MIL was raped by her FILBILs multiple times and her husband supported this. MIL wanted to break the engagement after she overheard her husband, BIL's sons talking to the groom about sharing friend with them, and groom told them that we'll consider it. A friend's girlfriend going into detail about her ex-husband used to abuse and rape her. This was on the very first night that I met her. My boss told me his mother has dementia, and that he feels like he's experiencing it, too. Hearing your boss say I might have dementia to you in private is real weird. Especially coming from such an aggressively confident man. He seems so deflated and sad. In the past 5 years he's gone from being a super fit 50-year-old that you'd never guess was 50 to looking like he's 70. It was me. I mentioned that my mom, my daughter's grandma, was coming to visit. My then 5-year-old was shocked to the core. Is grandma your mom? I didn't know it was a secret. A friend revealed she was the product of father, and father was father, but sister was mother, and mother was actually grandmother. That she was beaten unconscious and raped by her entire patrol in Iraq. At the start of this year, my mom got drunk and let it slip that I was adopted. At 30 years old, that was an Estilla trip. I was chatting with a detail cop, and he happily told me that he sold all the drugs he confiscated near a CVS in town. My entire life I thought I was an only child, only for my dad to admit that he's had children with other women. He never said who, but I could have bio siblings out there, and I also apologize for my dad being terrible. An old friend burned her house down, with her husband and 3 kids inside. Got her family out just in time. She was on a new antidepressant and had a mental breakdown in middle of the night. She faced 83 years in prison after the arson investigation and was only sentenced to 6 months, no prior record. Her husband killed himself, by arson, while she was in jail. The detectives still investigated her cellmates, and her family. Her kids were with their grandparents when he killed himself. She's been out for a decade now and is living a normal life. For a time, we kept a gravestone in our front yard. Since it wasn't Halloween, I asked my mom why we had it out, and she told me it was for my miscarried older brother. My mother told me that my now deceased stepfather told her of something he did in his youth. He got into a car accident and the old lady he ran into died on the scene. The first responding police officer told him to leave, that the old lady had lived her life and he was just getting started. So he got off scot-free for killing an old lady with his vehicle. I feel that his self-entitlement in life probably started there. He ended up later in life robbing a store, holding hostages, and then got arrested. While out on bail he took his own life. That their ex-wife hit and killed a 17-year-old girl after the girl revealed she was pregnant by either her boyfriend or his father. The ex-wife was the sister to her boyfriend. The body was dropped in a secluded area and found later by hunters. No one has ever been charged. He sexually abused his 2 children. He did not come out and say it, but started crying and saying, "Please don't hate me." When I was 11, I had a friend reveal that her stepmother was abusing her. She made me promise not to say anything to my mom or any other adult. I agreed. We had weekly therapy sessions with a guidance counselor if you wanted it, so it was my day to go and I just felt like I needed to tell, so I did. The counselor ended up reporting it and CPS got involved and my friend was made to live with her mother. She was so angry at me for telling, but I felt it in my soul that I should. We are still friends to this day. Both of us 29 years old. Grew up thinking my dad, who was a fisherman, had drowned. Went on a cruise in my early 20s with family. Mom revealed that he had been murdered by a new crew member for a paycheck. He skipped town the next day and the local cop, who hated my dad over something trivial, didn't do jack shit. How he got rid of a body. It involved freezing it, then drive to the shore and using a wood chipper. My buddy in college told me when he was little he was playing bungee jumping with his cousin. His cousin wrapped a rope around his neck and hung himself. Story still scares the shit out of me. I found out at 10 years old that my dad is actually my stepdad. Funny thing, he found out that day too. They had a diaper fetish and wanted to have me diaper them so they could poop and I'd clean them. The absolute shock, horror, and disgust of that moment went through me like a lightning bolt. They'd ambushed me by asking me into the bathroom under false pretenses. Brand new coworker I was training one night revealed that she was raped by her best friend's dad when she was a child. This was the first time I'd ever met her. Ex-boyfriend revealed he was raped by a police officer multiple times when he was a toddler. The police officer was apparently a family friend. This admission came when we were in the drive-thru for a fast food restaurant. My friend revealed that he had sex with his third cousin at a family reunion. He said everybody was pretty upset but didn't understand why nobody cared about the first 2. After matching on Tinder and talking on the phone all night, she told me she smokes meth. I worked with a very sober and intelligent woman with a background in biology. Once when she was drunk at the company Christmas party, she told me about a very intense experience with a UFO-ish object when she was younger. A multicolored, shimmering and incomprehensible thing that hovered above her for 30 seconds and gave her sensations of information she couldn't make sense of. She swore me to secrecy and admitted to having needed a lot of therapy after. Her story was quite believable. Was friends with a guy for a short time, then he told me his mom and sister were the ones killed at Yosemite in the early 2000s. After he told me that he disappeared and went dark. I've always prayed for him and wondered if his